I ultimately cost my arrogant new boss his entire business, and it all started the day he decided to buy it. He didn't realize that while he may have bought the company's assets, he didn't own its soul, and its soul was me. Act 1, Do what you love. As an aimless teenager, I started working for a small business owned by a man named Robert. It was a local place with a specific niche, and its success was built on monthly service contracts with a loyal client base. To my surprise, I genuinely loved the work, so much so that I rearranged my entire life to keep the job long-term. I transferred to a local college and juggled other part-time jobs, always ensuring they never conflicted with my hours for Robert. Robert was a good boss. Mostly, he looked out for me, even if he took advantage in small ways over the years, which I can't really complain about in hindsight. When I first started, the business's name recognition was all tied to him, but over time, that shifted. The local chatter became, "Go to Liam, he's the best." I honestly believe that if I hadn't been there, the business wouldn't have become nearly as successful as it did. For years, it was heavily implied, though never explicitly stated, that when Robert retired, the business would become mine. He had a way of skirting around direct promises, but he always gave me hope. Act 2, Enter Greg. About 3 years before the pandemic, Robert decided to retire. He made a half-hearted attempt to sell the business to me at an absurd price, but it was obvious he already had another buyer lined up, a man named Greg. Greg owned a similar business just outside our market area, so there wasn't any real customer overlap. More importantly, he had a lot of money and was eager to buy. But here's the crucial part: I knew, and I think Robert knew, that the sale couldn't go through if I didn't agree to stay on. My role was just too integral. So, a deal was struck. Greg bought the business, and I was put in charge of the day-to-day operations, which was mostly what I was already doing, just with a few more administrative tasks. Crucially, my name was still the name in town. Greg made zero effort to ever be on site, so none of our clients had any idea who he was. Act 3, Learning to stand up for myself. For a while, things were fine. Greg would openly call me the head honcho at my location and mostly left me alone to manage my clients with the professional, personal touch I'd learned from Robert. The first real sign of trouble came a year before COVID. Greg sent me to a 4-day industry conference. I had to take time off from my other job, but I was happy to do it for the business. When I got back, I submitted an hours request for my time at the conference, and I was generous, not even logging the hours for seminars I personally wanted to attend, even though they'd also benefit him. The request was denied. Industry conferences are enriching activities, he told me. We pay for your admission, but they're on your own time. It took 2 weeks of back and forth, but it ended with me drawing a line in the sand. I said, "Look, I'll keep working for you because I love what I do, but if I don't get paid for this, I will never go to another one of these conferences to get new ideas for you again." The money was in my account almost immediately. This incident set the tone for our relationship moving forward. Greg thought he was saving a few $100s, completely unaware that this single act of petty greed was the first crack in the foundation of the business he'd just bought. Act 4, The Breaking Point. When COVID hit, our location was shut down. For 3 weeks, we were closed, but our clients were still being charged for their monthly services. To make matters worse, Greg had recently switched us to a new client payment portal that I hadn't been trained on. So when clients called me asking for refunds or to pause their accounts, I was completely helpless. I messaged Greg suggesting we could go virtual to keep assisting our clients. His response was a furious, curse-filled text message that essentially said, "Look, you're not the boss, go fuck yourself. You had your chance to be the owner and turned it down. I'm in charge." This reveals Greg's greatest fatal flaw, his ego. He couldn't stand the idea that an employee might have a better idea than him, and that arrogance would ultimately seal his fate. As one person online later commented, "One day people will learn not to piss off the one person who holds their entire business together, but I don't see it happening anytime soon." That text was the moment I knew I had to do something. We did eventually go virtual a week later, but the damage was done. I was still getting daily calls and emails from frustrated clients I couldn't help. So, for the next 2 months, I started to plan my exit and my new beginning. I studied business structures, talked to the other staff about my intentions, built a new website and social media presence from scratch, and all the while, continued to give my absolute all to our clients in our new virtual format. Greg probably didn't expect any of this. He also likely forgot that because I often handled back-end tasks from home, I had a little black book of every single client, complete with their email addresses and phone numbers. Act 5, Surgical Strike. As I laid the groundwork, I knew I was taking a calculated risk. As a commenter on my story would later point out, was there any risk to the idea that Greg could have seen you as stealing his clients? It seems like a potentially risky maneuver. Of course, he would see it that way, and a lawsuit wasn't out of the question, but I knew the client's loyalty was to me, not to a man they'd never met. I waited patiently until the end of a service month. I didn't want any client to lose money on services they'd already paid for. On the last weekday of the month, I told the staff to give our clients a heads up to check their emails at the end of the day. As the business day closed, I hit send. An email went out to all active and many recently inactive clients. A text blast followed. Simultaneously, my new website went live, and my new social media accounts began posting. I had even enlisted a few trusted clients to spread the word once they got the signal. The effect was instantaneous and overwhelming. Within 15 minutes, my phone was ringing nonstop. My inbox flooded with over 50 emails. Local Facebook groups were blowing up with chatter. I sat there, watching the screen, a feeling of pure terror and exhilaration washing over me. Every buzz of my phone, every notification pop-up was another client, another voice saying, "We're with you, Liam." Many told me they were immediately calling Greg to cancel their service. We quickly scheduled a Zoom meeting for everyone to clear up any confusion and announced we would be open for business on Monday. Greg must have been in a state of sheer panic. His phone, which had likely been silent for months, was suddenly inundated with cancellation calls from customers he didn't know, all mentioning a name he had so foolishly disrespected. Less than an hour after my launch, he sent a text blast to every client on his list. They would be shutting their doors, effective immediately. At the start of COVID, the business had roughly 50 active clients. On my first day of business, I signed up 75. Many of them were returning clients who told me, "Yeah, we left because Greg was kind of a dick." The funny thing is, I never wanted to be a business owner. I was perfectly happy working for someone else, as long as I was treated with basic respect. If Greg had treated me even remotely better, his location would have continued to be a thriving staple in our community, but he chose to be greedy and disrespectful, and he lost everything. Now, almost 2 years later, we've nearly tripled the client numbers he had and are more successful than ever. In the end, a business isn't just a name on a building, it's the people who build it and the relationships they foster. Greg bought a company, but he failed to value the person who was its heart and soul, and he paid the ultimate price for it. So let me ask you, have you ever had a boss who completely underestimated your value? What happened when they finally realized their mistake?